Welcome back to Drive Your Thoughts podcast. I'm your host, Master Coach Carrie Marshall, and it's time to go after those goals.
Yeah, whether ready or not, life's coming hard, no breaks, no stop. And if you put me on the spot, don't get it twisted, I never drop. If you feel a bit out of control and out the box, here's a way that you could drive your thoughts. Turn this podcast on, it's a lock. Carrie Marshall on the clock.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm so excited to be here with my friend. We were just talking. It's been almost a decade since we've been friends, but this is my friend Aaron Cali, and I'm so excited for our conversation today. Aaron and his wife, Amy, are the type of people that I could sit for hours and talk about an array of things. So that's what we're going to do today.
Wonderful.
Is just kind of talk about what's going on with your life. Aaron, you've always been somebody that I've actually looked up to because you kind of just live your life how you want to.
A little bit, yeah. I think one of the things that I was very concerned about when I went to college was that everybody around me, it seemed, knew what they wanted to do in life. Everybody had their majors picked out. Everybody knew where they wanted to be in 10 years. And every time I've sat down and somebody asked me, what is it that you want to do in life? I never had a good answer. And so because of that, you take things as they come. And one minute I might be really interested in computers or a certain video game or a certain sport. And so I'm used to my interest evolving over time. And thus my life and what I decide to do with my life really evolves over time. I don't let it set. There's not one set thing that I want it to be.
I think that's almost like a disservice that we do to kids is the what do you want to be when you grow up instead of like what are you interested in right now?
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember a lot of pressure in college as well of like, what do you want to be? Here, pick a major. I thought, dental was for me, dental hygiene, especially because that's what women did around here. Women weren't dentists.
Right.
But I thought, okay, dental hygiene. And then I got into anatomy and physiology and I hated it.
Yeah.
I could probably do a root canal by myself. I never tried, but I grew up in the dental industry. But college was a kick in the butt for me of very much like, you can't do this. You're not smart enough.
Yes.
And honestly, if I was being quite honest, dental hygiene was not what I was excited about either.
For me, and I'm somebody who I didn't graduate from college. For a long time for me, that was one of those things that I was a little embarrassed about. Mm-hmm. Over time, it's become one of those things that's kind of a badge of honor for me.
Well, and when did that stop being a problem for you?
I think it stopped being a problem when I decided that there wasn't a time that I was going to go back. So for about 10 years, I was like, well, maybe I'll do some online classes, or maybe at some point I will finish and get a degree. The point where I said, I will probably never get a degree is when I started thinking, maybe I don't need one. Maybe I can find success without that. And at that point, when I started finding success, that's when I started thinking, I've done it without the degree. Maybe this whole thing that we have, obsession we have with higher education is maybe we need to rethink it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so
I'm not
smart.
against higher education, by the way.
I think you and I are in the same boat, right? Like, I think that there's space for it, and I think that you need it. I think that growing up happens a lot in there, but the necessity of having it to open doors, I think, for most professions is a little silly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I found, too, is I'm like, okay, am I really going to need a degree in order to... But for a lot of people, that has been the door open of
the gateway.
Yeah, the gateway. Thank you. Of like, do you have a degree? No, then you're not eligible for this.
Right.
Which is silly.
Yeah.
Well, and so I think that's the same for both of us, though, that it's kind of opened up this multifaceted interests and loves and willingness to jump into new hobbies and interests. One of the things that you and I share is a love for Disney.
We love Disney in our house.
You guys are not just love Disney. I would say we love Disney. Let's go to the next level of Disney for your household.
So it started, I don't know exactly when it started, but there was one trip that we took, and it was probably early on in our young family. We took all of our kids to Disney, and there was something for everybody. And we were exhausted when we came home, but everybody had a great time. And it was something that we always talked about over the years, was how much fun that was. We went another time with my wife's brother's family. We had 4 girls. They had 4 girls. And so there were 8 young girls running around Disney. And it was honestly just a hoot. It was a lot of fun and a lot of great memories. And so their family and our family just fell in love with Disney. When our older children went to college, there's an internship program that they do at Disney called the Disney College Program. And my daughters ended up doing that program several times. One of their cousins, who we were close with, also did the program. And so we ended up going out and visiting them. And as we visited them, my wife and I said, should we just get annual passes since we're out here so much? And that became just something that my wife and I ended up doing a lot. Was there's a cheap flight out to Orlando for the weekend. Let's just go for the weekend. And when COVID shut everything down in the country, one of the things that remained open was Disney World. And flights were really cheap. And so during the pandemic, we ended up going 17 times to Orlando to go to Disney. And it just became something that my wife and I really enjoy doing together.
You know, it's interesting. The people that I've talked to that did travel during the pandemic talked about what a great experience it was for them. I was out in Hawaii just a couple weeks ago, and my Uber driver was telling me that he and his family flew to Maui to vacation, and they said, well, we're not going to if they'll let us come, then we'll go. And they never came home.
Oh, they just stayed there.
They just stayed there, and he's still there. But he was fantastic. It was such a great experience to be able to travel, and they island hopped a lot that time. And he just said it was a really fun experience for us to be able to travel during the pandemic.
It seems counterintuitive, but one of the things that became important to us, politics aside, was that we are not just going to stop living. We'll find ways to do something, to explore something. And so when you look at it with a different set of eyes, instead of being very confining, there was a whole opportunity there as well.
Well, I remember one of our favorite trips to Mexico was during, I can't remember, I think it was the swine flu, and it had shut down Mexico, and we went. We were like, we're going. But it was interesting. When we got to the airport, we were going through customs, and one of the guys said, thank you for coming. And he said, this really means a lot to, he's like, I don't even know where you're traveling or what you're doing, but he says it means a lot to our economy that people are still willing to do this. And that's what we found that whole trip, was that people were just so grateful that tourists would still travel. And so it was a fun opportunity. We had a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
So what's one of your favorite things about Disney World in particular?
So there's always a debate between Disney adults as to which is better. Is it Disneyland or is it Disney World? And I will say that all of the rides, the individual rides at Disneyland, are 100% better. The experience at Disneyland is unique and great. Disney World we love because there's so much room. It is so much bigger. The footprint of the parks is just a lot bigger, so there's a lot more room. And even when it's crowded, it doesn't feel so claustrophobic, really.
That's true.
The other thing that we love about going to Disney World specifically is because there are 4 different parks, there's kind of different experiences that you're able to have. So, for example, you can spend a day at Animal Kingdom, and it's very much an outside park. You're outside a lot. You get to see animals. You get to really enjoy nature and not necessarily be at it doesn't necessarily feel like it's a theme park.
Yeah. We got to go together. We went to the Animal Kingdom. That was a fun one.
Yeah.
I really love that one. That was awesome. So you have one huge dream about working at Disneyland or Disney World.
Yes.
At Disney in particular. I'm sure you'd go either Disneyland or Disney World.
Yeah, wherever they'll take me. If I could be a skipper on the Jungle Cruise, that would be my ideal job. Now, I've been a father for, we just celebrated Father's Day. Mm-hmm. I've been a father for 26 years now. And I think I've honed my craft enough that the dad jokes come naturally to me.
And so what was it about when you went on the Jungle Cruise that you were like, this is it? Like, this is my jam right here?
I don't know. It really is. A lot of the delivery is so deadpan. Mm-hmm. It's not, it's not the wink, wink, we're telling jokes. It is just joke after joke. And my kids love and hate it, because that's exactly how we deliver it at my house.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was just kind of like part of it of like, yeah, this is just who I am. This is how we roll.
And I will go on that every time I go. It's one of the must-dos for me because I just love the atmosphere. I love the jokes. Even if I've heard the joke 100 times, I just love it every time.
And it's interesting to see, based on who you're in the boat with, how they're reacting to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we sat next to a little girl that was belly laughing the last time we were there, and it made it so much more funny. Like she was just on edge waiting for the next thing. It was adorable. And it like even the skipper was just like laughing at the girl laugh. It was just so much fun. We had such a good time.
So a little bit of Disney history. Mm-hmm. When the Jungle Cruise first came out, it was not that at all. It really was, let's take you on a cruise around the different cultural things, and you can see different cultural things. And nobody was going on it. And Walt Disney went to his staff and said, what can we do about this? And somebody came up with this idea to make jokes, and suddenly everybody wanted to go. And so just that little bit of tuning with making it more entertaining, I think really attracted a lot of people.
That's cool. I didn't know that story.
Yeah.
It's fun to be able to watch other people like Walt Disney fail at something and be able to see what they do with it. It would have just been as easy to shut it down and be like, this is space, this is real estate, let's put something else in. But to be able to say, no, it's here, we've invested in it. What's the small little tweak that we can do is pretty incredible.
That's a really good point. In my career, my career has been all with computer technology. So I'm a computer programmer. I did take some classes in college and decided this is great. I love this. And so I would really devour anything that had to do with how to use computers, how to write programs. And a lot of it I was self-taught. But over the years, I've luckily surrounded myself with people that allowed me to fail and then succeed afterwards. You mentioned we've known each other for 10 years. This company that I helped start, and we failed many times early on. And there were honestly times when I thought to myself, I'm going to be out of a job very soon because I screwed this up so badly. But we had a lot of people around who said, that was a great first attempt. What did you learn? Let's do it better. And so, just like you said with Walt Disney, I've been very fortunate to surround myself with people who allowed me to fail and then succeed.
So that brings up, that's actually how we know each other, is because of that company. What was it like being at a startup? Like you said, I mean, lots of failure, but what were some of your favorite parts about being part of a startup?
Being part of a startup was so absolutely unique. I've always gravitated towards smaller companies anyway. I think the culture is better. I think the challenges are bigger. You do become a large fish in a very small pond. And I've loved the challenges that come along with that. Being at this one was very unique, and it was very unique almost right off the bat, where the people that were involved, everybody seemed confident that there was something here. We didn't necessarily know what it was.
But it was something.
But it was
right?
something,
Yeah.
and you could feel it in the air.
Yep.
And there were times when like I said, I felt like I had screwed up so bad. I deleted data, or I had done something so wrong that I was going to be in trouble. I remember one time I wrote this program that went on a client's machine, and because I had written it improperly, it kind of took over that machine and got to the point where it crashed their server. And we ended up having to pay, I don't know what it was, $20,000 to replace their server. And we're really sorry about this. And I thought, this was it. That is a mistake that has real dollars associated with it that I'm responsible for. And never really felt like I got into trouble for doing that. It was all about, this is a learning experience for you. Now, don't do it again. Do not repeat.
Yes, do not repeat.
But over the years that we were there, it was one of the most challenging things that I've done, because we wrote this application, and for the first 5 years, I was on call 24/7. So if something went wrong, I wrote a program that it would alert me right away. And I would get text messages in the middle of the night that the servers were down. And so I am frantically running to my computer room to get on and see what's wrong and get it fixed. It was very stressful. It was all encompassing in my life. There was nothing in my life that wasn't this company. That's what it felt like anyway. My wife was very understanding.
She's a rock star.
She's
she
amazing.
is a rock star, but
she's amazing.
She was amazing through that whole process.
She was. And she realized how important it was for me personally. And she realized how important it was for our family. There were parts of it that were very hard for her. Being on call 24/7 was very difficult in a lot of ways. In fact, there's trips where we went to Disney, where middle of the day, I would have a backpack with me at Disney, and I have my laptop in it. And if something came up, kids, you guys go on rides. I'm going to sit right here, and I'm going to work for the next 3 hours on a bench at Disney World, because something needs to get done immediately.
Well, and that's something that before we were involved, because it is a software company, before Curtis was working there and starting it and all of that, I didn't realize that with software, it was a 24/7 babysitter.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting with your wife one time when you guys flew in, and saying, oh, how's it going for you? And she's like, we're exhausted right now. She said, I'm exhausted. He's exhausted. And I thought, I wonder why. So I asked her, I said, why? That's 9 to 5. And she laughed like, oh, sweetheart. She said, it's not a 9 to 5. It's a 24/7. And and so she explained to me what you were doing. And I was like, I had no idea.
So it got to the point where she would, our family vacations, she would schedule cruises so that nobody could get a hold of me, and I could not be on call. I had to make everybody aware, I'm going to be on a cruise ship for the next week.
Who's babysitting?
Babysitting?
Yeah,
I cannot be contacted.
Yeah. It's so smart though. We grew up doing the same thing. We would go down to Lake Powell because my dad could not make it back to the dental office. He couldn't answer calls, but my mom said this was a way of me protecting your dad's time And she said, and without fail, he'd end up getting sick because it was the one time that he could
that
get
he was
sick.
allowed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember that. So I saw that in Amy as well, of like she was protecting your space,
Yes.
your energy by, hey, he's not available.
And making sure that I was attentive to the family needs at the same time.
Yeah.
And so when we went on vacations, my kids knew this is for us. And I didn't need to be half in and half out.
And that's important.
Yeah.
It's important when you have kids growing up. And
when the company eventually sold, and it was, there was a weight lifted. There was also this feeling of having accomplished something very important. And I remember sitting with my wife in bed and saying, Amy, I want you to know that this accomplishment is as much your accomplishment as it is mine. I could not have done this without you. And it felt like we were a team, which is one of the things that for our relationship has been always important, that we did things as a team.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like you said, when that sell came through, selling the company, being able to say, check, mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished, right.
Right. That had to just be such, like you said, such a moment for you of like, I did it. No degree.
Yes.
Self-taught. And look what I created and made.
So over the course of my life, I've always felt I've always had a really bad case of imposter syndrome. I've always felt like I was faking my way through things. This was one of those moments where I could look back and say, this is something I actually did. There were people there that helped me. There was all sorts of moments that I know I could not have done it alone, but at the same time, it could not have gotten done without me.
Without you there, yeah, for sure.
So it's very validating.
And it's like you said, it's something that you can for sure, circumstance, truth, all facts, all of that say, this is what I did.
Yes.
So what have you done to help you get over that imposter syndrome? Or does it still come up in different areas?
Almost all of the time.
You're like all the time,
constantly.
Yeah.
And it's to there was a time when professionally I had accomplished something, and the owner of the company and my supervisor at the time pulled me into a meeting and said, look, we just want to congratulate you for doing this. It was such a great job. We really appreciate it. And I said, thank you. And I hung up very quickly. And my boss came up to me later and said, you seemed really uncomfortable on that call. What do you want to talk about this? And I said, I have a really hard time accepting praise. I have a really hard time. And I think that goes along with the imposter syndrome.
Right, for sure.
And he said, you should really work on that. And so it's taken a lot of effort for me to accept praise. And so when somebody says, you did a great job on this, I said, thank you very much. And just being able to say thank you is hard. Mm-hmm. But even now, and by a lot of different metrics, I do feel successful in my life. But I can always say it was because of this circumstance, or because this person helped me, or, whatever that happens to be. It's hard feeling like I was the reason something was successful.
Yeah. And it's interesting when we do that, how often we then, like you said, deflect.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when it does come time to, accept the next position or the next role or the next thing, it's like, well, who am I to, instead of like, if I were to take a resume of you and you didn't know it was you and I was like, here it is, you'd be like, this guy's the guy.
I think you're right. And there was a time when I was looking for my next job after the company sold, where I did not know what my value was. Because I had been at a company for so long, because I had grown to positions that I wasn't in before. When it came time to negotiate salary, the numbers that I had in my head were vastly different from the numbers that I could have demanded. And so there was one of my coworkers who literally sat me down and said, you have done this, this, and this. You took a company from 0 to 200 million. So
what that means
is you are actually worth this. And it was hard for me to put my worth into a number, but also to accept that big number is actually what I'm worth.
Well, I remember having a conversation with you about both you and my husband and how you and Curtis both have very, very unique skill sets that are in high demand and that people are desperate for what you do. And you said, just let Curtis know I didn't know how much we are needed and valued. And I thought, how interesting that both of you came from this, like you said, 0, start growing with this company, grow into different roles, different things that you're doing, to the point where you almost, come out of it and say, oh, interesting.
And not just from a monetary standpoint.
Right.
When I sat down in some of the meetings that I'm in currently with my position, people automatically respect my opinion because I've been through certain things and I've seen growth in ways that they have not. And so when I say we have this application that now handles 200 people, what happens when it handles 10,000 people or 20,000 people? It's not something that people I work with now have dealt with before. And so the reason they come to me for advice is because I have been through it.
Yeah. And that is, like you said, I think that's sometimes where we undervalue is experience and being able to go through it and say, oh yeah, I remember from 200 to 1,000 or to 20,000,
right.
And that really does make a difference. So one of the things that I'm always such a big advocate of is having hobbies outside of work. And I know one thing that you love is hockey.
I love hockey.
Okay, so tell me where this passion came from in the first place. So I've never heard that part of it.
Okay, so when my wife and I moved to Colorado in the late 90s, 99. At the time, Colorado had a brand new hockey team that was extremely successful very quickly. And I started watching them play and fell in love with it immediately. It's a fast game. There aren't a lot of breaks like in football, which I do like football, but there's so much stop and go. Mm-hmm. And it was something that just appealed to me immediately. The professional team that I follow, the Colorado Avalanche, won the championship in 2001. And right around that time, I thought to myself, I wonder if I could play. I wonder if this is something that I could do. And so I got some skates and I got a stick and I started playing. And it's something that I have done ever since. Now, I am an awful hockey player. This is another thing that I've realized about myself is I do not need to be the best in order to enjoy it. I know that's not the same for some people.
That's me, though. That's absolutely me that I've learned is if I'm there, I can have a good time.
Yes. Yeah. So I love playing hockey. I've played hockey every week since about 2001. So about 20 years now that I've been playing. I am awful. I have not gotten a lick better since then.
20 years.
20 years, not
mediocre.
Any better at all. But I love playing. And there is a certain camaraderie that I have with these other 40-year-old men that I play hockey with every week, where we know nothing about each other's lives. But this is the one thing that for an hour and a half every week we do together. And we all really love it.
Well, and I think that having something to do outside of work something physical and something with other people in general. Like you said, you don't need to know what the guy on that team does, but to be able to have some camaraderie outside of work, I think is so important.
It really is. And it helps, with a different aspect of my life also. I have ADHD. It's hard for me to concentrate on one thing at a time. Even when I'm working during the day, I'm thinking about other things as well. When I am playing hockey, it is the only thing that I'm thinking about. I'm only thinking about the next shift. I'm only thinking about being open for the right pass or whatever. And it really is relaxing to my entire body because I'm not trying to do other things at the same time.
Why do you think that is, that hockey does that for you with the ADHD?
So I think it's because there are multiple things that I'm doing while I'm playing. So there's the physical aspect of it. There's trying to just be on ice skates, which is always challenging. And there's trying to be in the right position at the right time. So it might be wrong to say that I'm not thinking about other things, but everything I'm thinking about is all focused on one thing.
Yeah, I think that that's true. I think that that's kind of what I've found with a couple of things that I do, like snowboarding. If I'm snowboarding and especially if I'm teaching somebody how to snowboard, I have to do this. I have to be on my own snowboard plus that. And it does give me just something to focus. But I like what you just said about how it relaxes you. It's like the one time that your brain can just kind of go,
yes.
That's what I feel when I snowboard, is it's like, whew,
yeah.
Okay, good. Like the one thing that we can do instead of this and this and this and this.
Right.
And so that's awesome that you have that. What other things? You love Disney, hockey?
So my daughter last week tweeted that she went to the grocery store to get a Father's Day card for me. And all of the Father's Day cards are very, there's a mechanism there of dad loves sports and loves sitting in front of the TV and doesn't do a whole lot around the house or whatever those dad cards are. Yes. Yeah. And she said, what I'm really looking for is a card that for my dad who loves to tap dance, is learning how to sew, but also loves hockey and is the cook of the house. So I think, I mentioned this earlier, I find hobbies very quickly and I kind of jump right into them and say, I bet I could do that. And so cooking was one of those. I love to cook. My kids have asked me, would you ever open a restaurant? And I wouldn't, because then I would not love to cook. It would be a job.
That's exactly what I found.
At that point.
Yeah.
I love to tap dance, which is a weird thing.
I didn't know that about you.
Yes.
Well, how long have you been tap dancing for?
So when I was a young boy, my mom got me this book by Tommy DePaola about a little boy who wanted to learn how to tap dance, but the kids were making fun of him because boys shouldn't tap dance. And for some reason, I loved this book, and so I always wanted to tap dance. And so when I got to college, I saw that they offered tap dance class, and so I took tap dancing every semester that I was in college.
Well, that's awesome.
And then a couple of years ago at the local community center, they started an adult tap dancing class. And it was me and 15 middle-aged divorcees who wanted to do something new. And so every Monday night I would play hockey, and every Tuesday night I would go tap dance.
That's awesome. I love it. That's so great. And then you said that you started sewing as well.
I started sewing. This was during the pandemic that I started sewing. We ended up selling our house at the time, and so it was something that I got super interested in. And then we have not yet even unpacked the sewing machine. But my wife told me a couple of weeks ago, I need you to sew this. And so
that put it on the to-do list.
That put on the to-do list, and now I have some extra time, so I'm going to get back into that. My sister is a really good seamstress, and so it's a way that I can connect with her also.
That's fun. I love being able to know that when we're interested in things, I think so often as adults, a lot of adults pull back from doing things and say like, it's not for me. I can't find it. I remember going horseback riding lessons and the lady said, "Oh, you're the first adult we've had in years." And I was like, "Great." I'm like, do you do it? She's like, "Well, yeah, we'll do it. But we just don't have people start." She said, "We have a lot of adults that ride, but they've ridden since they were kids." And I was like, "Yeah, I have no experience whatsoever with horses." And she was like, "Great. We're excited to have you." And I was in a class with 10-year-olds and I loved it. It's great.
That's awesome.
But it's so fascinating to see when we pull back from our desires or, things that interest us because of our age.
Right.
I think that that's something that we definitely need to get over of like our age has anything to do with being interested and fascinated in things.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that the older I get, the more curious I get. And the more I think to myself, I wonder if I could do that. Almost like it's a challenge to myself. I wonder if I could do that.
The other thing that I find is the older I get, the more money I have. And so the more things I can do, because when I was 20, 25-ish, and I had a young family and no money, we'd still figure things out. We'd still go and do things. But I am like, oh, I can afford that.
I know. It becomes a little bit of a problem where my kids, my youngest actually, constantly says things like, "Oh, this is what really nerdy people do with money." Like, yes, this is what nerdy people do with money.
Absolutely.
I have Star Wars toasters and I have a rug that's Star Wars. And my kids are like, "Will you ever grow up?" And the answer is no. This brings me so much happiness.
One of my favorite memories was when we were in Disney World together. And you and Amy, before we had gotten there, you had gone and done the lightsaber experience. Yes. But the favorite thing was hearing you and Curtis playing with the lightsaber and Amy saying, "Put your lightsaber away and come to bed." And I still just could not stop laughing about you and Curtis in there playing with it and having a good time in the front room.
That's right. 2 40-year-old guys.
Yeah, just hanging out with the
living
lightsaber.
out our lightsaber dreams.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was so much fun. Okay, so I want to switch gears totally selfishly for a little bit.
Okay.
You raise daughters. You're still raising daughters.
Yes.
Ocean, my oldest, just hit 16.
Okay.
How was the teenage years? And you're still kind of in the back end of that, right? Your youngest is
20.
20? No.
20. Yeah.
I thought she was maybe 18.
No,
Gosh, how does time fly like this?
It very quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly. You know what? I never knew how very difficult it was going to be. I love all of my kids. The experience for each of them was so different, to the point where, you go through it once and you think, okay, I've got this. It was completely different. And the way that they reacted to their teenage years was really different. I have one daughter who is a rule follower. I thought her teenage years were super easy because she really just wanted to follow the rules. I had another one who just wanted to experience what she wanted to experience. And she would say things like, "I know this is wrong, but I want to do this." Okay. And so you adjust your thinking a little bit to do what you can to support them. I would say for me, the most important thing that I could do as a parent was to constantly tell them that I loved them. It didn't really matter what they were going through. As long as they knew that I was in their corner, they felt a little bit better about life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is so interesting. I remember with our first baby, right? Super easy. And I thought it was because we were really good parents. I thought for sure that was the reason. And
Yeah.
so when we had our second, she was a challenge.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh no, we've made a mistake having these two so fast.
Yeah.
But it is so interesting to watch them all go through these different phases and be like, oh, fifth grade is not just fifth grade girl experience, right? It is very different.
It's very different. And for somebody who has never gone through that, I will say that I think boys and girls see life very differently. And so for me to try to be there and support them was a little bit of a challenge because I do not think the same way that they think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it takes a lot of effort as a parent. And that's where what I'm figuring out is it takes a lot of effort to say, okay, not just here's my way, but tell me what you're seeing and tell me what you think and how are you seeing the world that maybe I haven't because of my own experiences or where I'm coming from.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
But most of the time I want to get to it and I'm like, time efficient, let's go. It's
That's
my
right.
way.
That's right. There was so much talking at my house. Like it was a constant barrage
4 girls
of
and
just
your wife. Yeah.
a lot of information a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say to my girls, you are just saying so many words right now. But I would not trade it for the world. I really, really enjoy being a father of girls.
And now you're a grandpa.
Now I'm a grandpa. 2 months ago, my daughter had her first child, and it's been amazing to watch her be a mother. I think it really just changes a person, and to see her go through it, both the good and the bad, and the frustrating things, and her being so happy, all of it is just so rewarding as a parent.
It's so cool to be able to see.
Yeah.
So one of the things to kind of circle back to the sale of the company, one of the things that I saw that you guys got to do is buy property.
Yes.
And build your dream home.
Yes.
That was really fun from an outsider's perspective. That was really fun to watch. How was it realistically for you guys?
Realistically, it was very exciting. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of very frustrating things about it. But from like holistically speaking, it was amazing. We didn't know exactly what we wanted. We went out thinking that we could just buy a house, maybe a new build. We could find one that we liked and we could just have a new build. Talking to a friend of mine, he said, have you ever thought about building your own house, getting a contractor and having it built? I said, I had not thought about that. I expected that it was going to be a lot more expensive to do it that way, and it really wasn't. It ended up being significantly cheaper to do it that way. There's a lot of upfront costs, which is why people don't typically do it because they can't afford those upfront costs. The other part of it is my wife she was diagnosed with a disease called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it affects her joints. And eventually she will be in a wheelchair. Probably not for another 10 to 15 years, but it will happen. And so when we were designing the house, we were able to take that into account and think about not only what do we want right now, but what will our needs be in 15 years if she is not mobile. Mm-hmm. So all of the doorways are extra wide so they can fit wheelchairs. All of the toilets are accessible and have bars next to them. Mm-hmm. We ended up putting an elevator in our house so that she's able to go from floor to floor without having to deal with stairs. So a lot of these, thinking that this is going to be our final house, mm-hmm. we got to put a lot of time and effort into thinking about what we need this house to be.
Well, and that's really cool that you can really think about, what your wife is going to need and say, customize, okay, our kids are, getting older, so we're not going to need the teenage house or mm-hmm. this. What we need is the grandparent house.
That's right.
Right? We need the great kitchen that you can cook in.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things I love, seeing pictures of your kitchen. I'm always like, kitchen envy right there.
So being the one that cooks in the house, it was interesting as we laid out the house, there were certain things that my wife prioritized, and there were certain things that I prioritized. And a lot of times we have stylistically, we have a lot of the same opinions about things. But when it came to the kitchen, it was always referred to as my kitchen. And so I got to choose what the kitchen looked like, the stove we got, a point of contention at one point was a pot filler. I wanted a pot filler. She didn't understand why, and I just said,
"Did you get your pot filler?"
I absolutely did.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. And every time I make pasta or something,
you're like,
"Look at this, honey. Look what I'm doing."
I love this pot filler.
Exactly. And so we got to put a lot of great details into the house that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to do.
Well, and it, like I said, coming from the space of, knowing the whole journey of the company and what energy and time and blood, sweat, and tears put in to the company, it was really fun to watch you guys be able to make that dream come true. And, to almost feel like a little bit of just like, attaboy, right?
Yeah.
Way to go, guys. Like, this is so much fun for you.
It was a lot of fun. It was very rewarding. And my kids all come back to this house and love the house, but say things like, "Where was this when I was growing up?" Sorry.
Did you say it wasn't for you? It's for your kids.
That's right. Grandma's house is going to be amazing.
Yeah, that's really fun. So what do you see is next for the next little bit of your life?
So I don't know. This is that same question. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? I don't know where I see myself in 10 years.
Tap dancing and hockey playing.
I hope so.
Making food and.
One of the things that with my wife having been diagnosed with this and knowing that at some point she will be confined, will not have the accessibility to get where she needs to all the time. We're really prioritizing travel. Mm-hmm. We're really prioritizing doing all of the things that we want to do in life now, so that because there will become a time when we won't be able to do that anymore.
Yeah, and it's been so much fun. I love watching you guys travel and seeing you at Disney and cruises, and it's so much fun to be able to just kind of watch that kind of journey, like you said, and be able to say, like, this is what we want right now, so that if and when this happens, we have experiences and memories and all of the things to then accept what happens and say, okay, now what's the next phase of our life?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Maybe I should have more of a plan
than
I do, but I do like, it served me well up until now. Not necessarily playing things by ear, because I am actually a very big planner. I love planning, but I don't want to get so far ahead of myself that it becomes disruptive, right?
Well, and I think that lends to the interest and that curiosity. I think that having space for curiosity in our lives is so much fun. It's fun to be able to say, what's next? And be genuinely curious and not say, well, the 5-year plan says,
right.
Here's what we're going to be doing. Well, this has been so much fun.
I've loved it. Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of our lives, honestly. It's been so much fun to get to know you, having the type of experiences that as couples we had doing that startup is something that is a relationship that we'll never have again.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things that Curtis and I talk about a lot, of like, wow, that was a once in a lifetime opportunity, relationship building.
There were so many wonderful things about it that it feels almost like a movie right now, where it was such a great experience to be a part of. And I can't believe that I was lucky enough to have fallen into a position to be part of it.
Well, and I can't wait for the actual movie to be written about this company. I can't wait to see who's going to play you. Any suggestions of who it should be?
I don't know. A Filipino American. Are there many of them out there?
I don't know. We'll have to find some.
Yeah, we will.
Curtis is for sure going to be played by Owen Wilson.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Like, hands down, there's only one person that can play that part.
That's amazing, yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Aaron. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this podcast episode. If you're ready to get in the driver's seat of your own life, you can come and follow me at Drive Your Thoughts Coaching on Instagram, or come and see more ways to work with me at driveyourthoughts.com.
Yeah, whether ready or not, life's coming hard, no breaks, no stop. And if you put me on the spot, don't get it twisted, I never drop. If you feel a bit out of control and out the box, here's a way that you could drive your thoughts. Turn this podcast on, it's a lock. Carrie Marshall on the clock.